we've never had a Super Bowl rematch on Fox in coming up on 31 seasons, and we were able to get it.
Welcome in to the NFL on Fox podcast. I am Dave Helman, and as promised, we have a schedule. So we have a schedule reaction show. The 2024 NFL schedule has officially dropped, and we've got all the goods for you. Jam-packed show today in what we're calling our Season 1 finale. This is going to do it for us for a little bit, but what a great note to go out on. It's funny. We've known what all these games would be since January. Since the last regular season ended, we've known who's playing who. But it just feels so real when you get the dates and you get the times. You can plan which games you're going to. You know which games you're going to be watching with family over the holidays. Just makes it feel real. And no matter how many times I've done this, I always get excited looking at the schedule and knowing when the peaks and valleys and the ups and downs of the seasons are going to come. It's an exciting time. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Like I said, this is our last show for a little bit, but we will be back with a vengeance in the summer. Season 2 coming as we get closer to the 2024 season. So we got plenty of schedule content coming. If you're listening to this, I assume you've taken a look at your team's schedule, at the schedule overall. You know what we're working with. We've got some reactions to it coming later, but I wanted to start the show, a really illuminating conversation. Mike Mulvihill, Fox President of Insights and Analytics, one of the people who actually works with the NFL to put the NFL schedule together, to help put together Fox's slate of phenomenal games, actually dropped by the show to shed some light on the process, not just the league's process of putting the schedule together, but how TV networks are involved and how all of that is shared between all of these major companies trying to get the best product for their network, including Fox. It was a really fun conversation. Mike Mulvihill, check it out. All right, let's jump into the meat of the show, which I'm really excited about because we can sit up here and predict records and talk about our favorite games, or we can get a little educational with it, and we can talk about how this actually happens, which I don't think is something that really gets a lot of attention. And who better to talk about it with than a guy who has been involved with the process of creating the NFL schedule for a decade plus. That would be the president of Insight and Analytics here at Fox, Mike Mulvihill. Mike, it's a big day, a big week for you. How are you, sir?
We're doing really well. It is a big day. It's one of the most significant days of the year for us, given the importance of the NFL to our business. But we're really happy. We feel great about the schedule. We're looking forward to the fall and happy to be here to talk with you about it.
So many huge games here on Fox, so many things to look forward to this season. For starters, though, I would love to shed some light on this process. You know, like I said, I mean, as soon as the schedule comes out, we're planning our travel, we're predicting wins and losses, we're doing all that fun stuff, but there's a lot of work and dotting I's and crossing T's that goes into this. Can you walk us through the process of creating a finalized NFL schedule and your role in it here for Fox?
Sure, I can try. You know, the process is a 52-week-a-year conversation. It really is a never-ending dialogue between Fox and the other media partners and NFL broadcasting. We talk to our partners at the league every week throughout the season. We're constantly in a conversation about what has worked, what could we do differently. As early as week 3 of last year, we were already talking about the 2024 season and things that we might want to adjust or games that we might want to try to get. So there's a constant conversation with NFL broadcasting. And then around the time of the Super Bowl, we'll do a very lengthy postmortem of the previous season. We'll submit a list of the 50 games that we would most like to have on our air for the upcoming season. Every network does that. The league then takes everyone's top 50, and it's up to them to try to fairly distribute those games so that all the partners are satisfied and happy and have something to be excited about. It's hard to overstate the importance of the NFL to our industry. The rights deals among the TV partners now total over $10 billion a year. If you look at the 100 most watched shows on TV, the great majority of them are NFL games. So these decisions that NFL broadcasting has to make are extremely impactful to our company, to CBS, Amazon, NBC, now Netflix. They're very material to our business. And so they approach the process with a lot of thought, a lot of care. The effort that goes into it is incredible. They produce tens of thousands of iterations of the schedule. And then finally, they land on something that they deliver to us today. And hopefully we all walk away with something to really boast about and take to our advertisers.
I want to get to the part about, the wish list of games and divvying it up fairly. I think that's so interesting, but I'm also curious. It's a never ending conversation, like you said, and it's something that takes up most of a calendar year. With that in mind, like, is this week, is Wednesday the first time you get a look at this, or is there like a rough draft process? You hear stories about the league having to change the schedule because of a concert, or maybe there's a baseball game or something. Like, how many iterations of this do you get a look at before the final one, or is the final one like your first real glimpse?
Yeah, the number of versions of the schedule that I see throughout this entire process is one. I see the final product. I see the schedule that is released to the entire world today. As we go through these weeks and months leading up to the release, I do get indications of games that we're likely to have, not likely to have. The NFL is necessarily very diplomatic about, and very disciplined as well, about what they share and what they don't share. So it's on me to sort of read between the lines and come to an expectation of where our games might land. You obviously appreciate the importance of the Dallas Cowboys as a national brand. They're the most important brand for TV viewership on the NFC side and maybe in the entire league. So we spend a lot of time thinking about those 17 Cowboys games and which 8 to 10 we're likely to get. This morning, I sat down and just sketched out, what 9 games do I think we're going to end up with? And I think I had 8 of them. So even though the league is very, as I say, disciplined about their messaging, you can get a pretty good sense of what you think you're likely to get.
To your point, several very, very big Dallas Cowboys games on our air, whether it's week 1, Cowboys Browns, you've got the Cowboys playing Baltimore a little bit later in the year. The Thanksgiving game against the New York Giants, obviously 2 gigantic markets there playing on a national holiday. And that goes to what I wanted to ask you next. I get it. It's kind of up to the league what you wind up with, but how do you prioritize those games you want? And were there any that you were particularly kind of had circled in terms of really being excited to have a chance to get?
So as I say, we do submit a top 50, and a lot of thought on our part goes into how to rank those games, because it is a little bit zero sum. And if you get one top game, if you get one top Cowboys game, then there's something else that you're not going to get. And we'll sort of rank the games thinking in terms of how can we create a path for the NFL to give us 3 of our top 5, 6 of our top 10. This year, we ended up getting 6 of our top 11, which, given that there are 4 traditional TV partners, plus Amazon, plus Netflix for a few Christmas games, to get 6 out of the top 11 is a pretty great batting average. But we try to order our games so that if we don't get our number 1, we're lined up to get our number 2. And if we don't get our 1, we'll get our 2, 3, and 5. And we try to anticipate what their logic might be in parceling out the games. So, for example, there's no point really in listing 5 Dallas Cowboys games as your top 5, because you're clearly not going to get all 5, right? So you're trying to balance the biggest games and the biggest brands. I think this year it's probably fair to say that the Super Bowl rematch was number 1 on our board. I think it was probably number 1 on every network's board. These Super Bowl rematches don't come along that often. It's amazing that we've now had them in consecutive years. We've never had a Super Bowl rematch on Fox in coming up on 31 seasons, and we were able to get it. And I don't know that I had a lot of confidence that we would get it. Our top two games were Kansas City, San Francisco, and Dallas, San Francisco. I felt like we would get one of the two. Through most of the process, I kind of thought it was going to tip toward Dallas, San Fran. In recent weeks, it started to seem like it was going the other way. And we're obviously really gratified to have that game. Dallas, San Francisco now goes to NBC on a Sunday night. It's going to be certainly a tentpole of their schedule. Great game for them to have. But we're very, very excited to have a Super Bowl rematch for the first time.
That's a really great point. It feels kind of common because we just had one the year before, but these types of games don't come around very often. What's the immediate reaction when, especially like you said, I mean, there's a degree of confidence that you're going to get a certain number of Cowboy games because there's one every week. But when you get a game like this that you're not guaranteed or maybe not even likely to get, I mean, what's the immediate reaction there?
Yeah, Dave, you're exactly right. I mean, in our case, we are guaranteed at least 8 Cowboys games a year. And so when you know that you're going to get 8 out of 17, it can only be so good or so bad, right? You could almost pick 8 games out of a hat and be close to what you're getting, the quality of what you're going to get. In the case of Kansas City, coming from the AFC package, we're only contractually guaranteed one. So obviously, there's a huge degree of variance between getting Kansas City, San Francisco, and I don't want to slight any other team, but there are a lot of teams that obviously wouldn't rate nearly as well as a Kansas City, San Fran matchup. So you feel comfortable that you're going to get a couple huge Dallas games. You don't really know if that one Kansas City game is going to be something extraordinary or just okay. And to get the Super Bowl rematch, thinking just about the math of what that will do to our viewership average over the season, that game by itself is going to be really impactful. A lot of people probably don't realize that the late afternoon games on Fox and CBS are actually the two highest rated shows on television. They beat Sunday Night Football. They beat Monday Night Football. Our 425 games were the number one show on TV for, I think, 14 straight years. Last year, CBS beat us by less than 1%. So we're very focused on reclaiming our traditional position as the number one show on TV. Having that Super Bowl rematch is going to go a long, long way to getting us back to where we want to be.
I kid you not. That's, we started the pod last season, and that's something I noticed as the season went along is, look, I mean, I know primetime games are amazing and they draw a lot of eyeballs, but these 4:30, 3:30 games, the numbers that they do in the matchups that you wind up getting, it seems understated how important they are. So it's interesting to hear you kind of affirm what I noticed during the course of last season.
Yeah, I think people don't realize how strong the afternoon windows are for sports. I mean, on Saturdays, our noon college football window is the number one game of the week in college football. On Sundays, as I say, we and CBS at 425 have the two top shows in television. So there's a tendency to focus on primetime, and there's 70 years of television history that explains why people focus on primetime. But really, when it comes to football weekends, the afternoon windows have really become the stronger place to be.
You mentioned it a couple of times, and I think a big talking point coming out of this schedule release is going to be the holiday schedule. Obviously, Netflix is getting involved with a couple of Christmas games. We here at Fox had a Christmas game last year. Cowboys, Giants on Thanksgiving this year. How, and you've been doing this for a minute, how have you seen the importance of these holiday games kind of rise up? Especially, I mean, Thanksgiving has obviously been a tentpole thing for the NFL for a long time, but now Christmas as well. How have you seen that change over the years?
Well, I'll give you two answers to that. One is very strategic and rooted in data and ratings, and the other one is a little softer and more emotional. The data point is that in 2020, Nielsen developed a capability to rate TV viewing outside of your primary home. So if you're watching a football game in a bar, in a restaurant, a hotel room, or at somebody else's house, as many of us do on Thanksgiving, you're now captured in that TV viewership. And what that has done is it's really increased the ratings for games that fall on days where families get together or groups of friends get together. That's why when the Masters falls on Easter Sunday, those ratings go way up. The Thanksgiving ratings in the last couple of years have been some of the highest in the history of the league. Same thing now on Christmas. So just in terms of the mechanics of how we track viewership and how we get to the numbers that we then sell, that's changed in a way that really favors the holidays. We had Giants Cowboys on Thanksgiving 2 seasons ago. That's also the matchup we're going to have on Thanksgiving this year. And when we had it in 2022, it did 42 million viewers and was the most watched regular season game in the history of the NFL. So that's the number that we're trying to beat this year. That out of home mechanism has a lot to do with it. And then from sort of a softer perspective, we're just very, very big believers that the whole reason this business exists at all is because sports brings people together and strengthens our connections like really nothing else. It brings us closer to our friends, our family, our city, our university. And I think there's something so powerful and meaningful about placing big sports events against the backdrop of holidays that bring people together. We want the NFL to be part of America's Thanksgiving celebration. We want America to open their Christmas presents on Christmas morning and then turn on the TV and see the NFL, or for many years, they saw the NBA. There's just a value that's hard to quantify in being part of days that are really meaningful to American families. So we try to be there as often as we can be.
As someone who watched all 3 Christmas games with my entire family last year, yeah, I get it. I understand it. I'm curious, one last thing for you. And look, I mean, you have these huge decisions. You're part of shaping this schedule that so many millions of people are going to watch in the fall. But what's your perspective of today and this week? Because even I've been covering the NFL for a decade or more now. And it really feels like it's in the last 6 or 7 years that the schedule release itself has become this event that you build a podcast around or you do live television programming around. What's your perspective on the amount of interest in just learning when these games are?
I love it. It's fun for me that there has come to be so much interest in the release of the schedule. I actually love the leaks that come out over the last 24, 48 hours. I know the league goes to a lot of effort to try to contain those leaks. I actually think it's good for the NFL that there's so much social media discussion around the schedule and that they dominate social media for 2 days. These weeks are incredibly fun for me and for my team. They're a little bit stressful. There's some anxiety associated with it. But while we're waiting for the NFL schedule, we're also going through a really interesting process of drafting college football games for our Saturday schedule. And so in a period of 2 weeks, we go from really not knowing much about what our fall is going to look like and what our showcase games are going to be to now having the entire NFL schedule and having a very, very well-developed idea of what our marquee college football games are going to be. In the case of Fox, the game of football accounts for about 2/3 of our viewership, 2/3 of our business through the entire year. So when you get that NFL schedule and you get that college football schedule, you know what 2/3 of your business looks like, and it comes together in a very short time. So we've gone from a total lack of clarity and visibility into what our fall is going to look like to now having a really good understanding of what our tentpoles are and having a lot to get excited about, get our talent excited. Talked to Kevin Burkhardt earlier today, got him excited. He was getting me excited, really, is more like it. We talk to our advertisers, talk to our affiliates, and really get everybody pumped up for the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the perfect way to put it. And I mean, it's true for people as well as businesses. I mean, this feels like the day where you can start to plan your fall, which, judging by the numbers, a lot of people are going to be doing that. It's really exciting. Mike, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the time. And now in 5-6 months, when we're sitting here hyping up Niners Chiefs, just remember, take a minute to think like, oh man, this all starts in the spring. This process, it's incredibly intricate. And it's cool to think about just how much work goes into it when we finally get to where we're actually talking about the X's and O's.
Yeah, thank you, man. Tomorrow we start working on 2025, but our calendars are marked and we're ready for the season, and the countdown's on.
I can't wait. Thanks a lot, Mike. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks one more time to Mike Mulvihill for dropping by the show to talk about the schedule and, in particular, a fantastic NFL on Fox slate. So many good games this year. Let's get to some of them. With this many bangers, I had to put a top 10 together. Fox games I am looking forward to the most. It starts right there in week 1. We've already talked about it on the show. Tom Brady's first Fox game will be a matchup of two 2023 playoff teams. Dallas going to Cleveland. Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons. What a way to kick off the year. Cowboys roll right into it. Week 3 against the reigning MVP Lamar Jackson. Dak Prescott and Lamar actually number 1 and 2, or no, yeah, Lamar 1, Dak 2 in MVP voting. That's a hell of a lot of fun. We touched on the Super Bowl rematch, Chiefs at 49ers. Can't wait to see how those two teams' seasons are going right there near the midpoint of the season. Another playoff rematch that looks fantastic as well. The Niners going up to Lambeau Field to play the Green Bay Packers. Packer fans, I know the Niners have gotten the better of that rivalry way more often in recent years. Maybe Jordan Love can help change that. Week 14, a cross-conference game that I'm really excited about. You got the Buffalo Bills coming out here to LA to face Matthew Stafford and the Rams. Bills put it on the Rams a couple years ago in 2022, but again, 2 playoff teams, big cross-conference matchup there. You don't associate this with Fox, I don't think, but how about week 16, an AFC grudge match, the AFC North, Pittsburgh Steelers going against the Baltimore Ravens right here on Fox. It's going to be cold. It's going to be grimy. It's going to be fantastic. Speaking of grudge matches, you wrap it all up week 17, the Cowboys and the Eagles in a 4:30 late afternoon game that's sure to do numbers. And if recent history is any indicator, will probably decide the NFC East. That's just a few of them. There are great ones every single week. I cannot wait. Had so much fun doing the NFL on Fox slate last fall. We will be right here to go through it with you starting in September. So many huge games to look forward to. And with that in mind, let's jump into what we're going to call the schedule superlatives. Just a handful of quick reactions right off the dome. Had a chance to look at everybody's schedule. And here are the quick takeaways that I think are worth sharing. Let's start with the toughest looking schedule as we sit here in mid-May. And look, I know stuff's going to happen. Teams that are supposed to be good aren't going to be. Teams that are supposed to be bad will be good. There's going to be injuries. I get all of that. But looking here, let's talk about the toughest looking schedule right now. And it's got to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion. And Steelers fans, it's not so much about the entire schedule because it starts out favorably enough. You kind of ease into it with some manageable games. You get to the bye week with a chance to put a very good record together. And I hope you do, because Pittsburgh, my goodness, what happens after the bye week is going to be a gauntlet, particularly the final 8 games of the Steelers season. They do not play a single AFC North game until their November 17th game against the Baltimore Ravens. They play all 6 division games in the last 8 weeks. Remember, this was the best division in football last year. All 4 teams finished above 500. 3 of those 4 made the playoffs. Pittsburgh's got to play all 6 of those games in the last 8 weeks. And what about the other 2 games, you say? Maybe you put some bad teams in there that you can sort of rest against or maybe take a breather. Not so fast, because on December 15th, you play the Philadelphia Eagles, and on Christmas, as we know, they play the Kansas City Chiefs. So in totality, all 6 division games against the toughest division in football, the Eagles and the reigning champion Chiefs, all in the last 8 weeks. Yeah, that is going to be a hell of a stretch for Mike Tomlin and the boys. And if they can get to a winning record against this, I think we say it every year, but this truly feels like it'll be Mike Tomlin's best coaching job. We'll see if Russell Wilson and company can help him get it done. But right here on May 15th, that looks really scary. All right, let's flip things over to the easiest looking schedule. And this is going to be ironic because I'm going to stay in the same division. See if you can follow the logic here, because I do think the most favorable, easiest looking schedule as I sit here in mid-May, I think it's the Cincinnati Bengals. And like I said, I see it. If you think that's inconsistent, if you're a Pittsburgh fan, maybe that sounds weird because the Bengals do still play in one of the toughest divisions in football. You got to deal with that gauntlet: Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. But it's interesting to note the difference that finishing fourth in such a good division can make. Bengals finish fourth. It makes a huge difference, even opposed to third place like Pittsburgh, let alone first place like the Baltimore Ravens, because outside of the division, this team gets to face a few breathers, such as the rebuilding New England Patriots, the very much rebuilding Carolina Panthers, the Tennessee Titans, who could be much improved, but did finish fourth in their division. There are a lot more opportunities to catch your breath. And oh, by the way, the Bengals division schedule is also spaced out, so you're not playing all of those fantastic AFC North teams in a row. I went through, we'll see how well this ages, but if we can assume Joe Burrow's good health, which he's back at practice, it seems like that's fair. I think outside of the division, the Bengals are likely to be favored in all but one of those games. Maybe they're not favored against a team like the Dallas Cowboys or the Philadelphia Eagles, but every other non-division game, I think, and the Kansas City Chiefs, worth mentioning, the reigning champs. That'll be a fantastic game in week 2. But the vast majority of these non-division games, I think the Bengals will be favored to win. And I think if Joe Burrow is healthy, this is a schedule that could set them up for a big, big bounce back. I think this is a schedule that could get you to 12 or more wins, again, if everyone's healthy. So I feel really good about where the Bengals are at, despite playing in that very tough division. Let's jump to something I'm super excited for. The best rematch of the year. So many to choose from. We already mentioned the Super Bowl rematch, but how about week 17 on a Monday night right around New Year's? The Detroit Lions going back to the Bay, getting another shot at the San Francisco 49ers. Of course, we knew this game was on the schedule already, but I'm extra excited to see the placement. We're going to have to wait a while for it, obviously, but all the way back at week 17, what a test for the Lions to see where they are than to go against the reigning NFC champion, one of the favorites to get back to the Super Bowl. Right before the season ends, the Lions will get this phenomenal test. Could be a preview. Maybe they meet again in the NFC Championship, but you got to imagine the Lions will be motivated after what happened in the NFC title game last year, blowing that big lead to San Francisco. Cannot wait to see that one. That's a rematch. Different category, worth distinguishing, because the next one is the best revenge game. So many things to choose from here. I mean, Russell Wilson and the Steelers are going to play the Broncos. There are a lot of ways I could have gone with this, but how could you say anything but the week 5 game, 1 p.m. Eastern, the Buffalo Bills going to Houston to take on Stephon Diggs and the Houston Texans? Need I say more? Trade just happened a month or so ago. Diggs, clearly some bad blood with Buffalo that the Bills were willing to trade their number 1 receiver. How will they replace him? How will the Bills respond? Can Diggs ball out with his new quarterback, CJ Stroud, against his old quarterback? Must see TV. Even though it's a 1:00 game, don't care. I'm going to be glued to it. Week 5, we won't have to wait long. So good. We'll wrap it up. Under the radar, I just want to make sure people have this on their radar, for lack of a better term. Game that we're not talking about enough, that would be week 12. It's going to be in prime time now. It's going to be a Monday night game. We get another Harbaugh. John Harbaugh going against Jim Harbaugh. The Baltimore Ravens come out here to LA to take on Jim and the LA Chargers. Not the sexiest matchup on the schedule when you look at all of these great ones between all of these juggernauts. We'll see what the Chargers are, but to have the Harbaugh brothers back competing against each other in Jim's first year back in the league, phenomenal. It's going to be great. Those are just a handful of so many reactions we could have to the schedule release. If you need more schedule content, we got you covered. Don't worry. Make sure you head over to foxsports.com, the Fox Sports app. Our entire staff reacted to the release. We've got record predictions for all 32 teams, thoughts on what to expect, the most interesting matchups, the most interesting stretches of the schedule. It's all there for you if you need more. Otherwise, for our part here on the NFL on Fox podcast, we'll get to the rest of these storylines in the summer when training camp is a little bit closer, when the season is a little bit closer, because this was actually our season 1 finale. We are taking a bit of a hiatus. Now that the schedule is here, we're going to take a break, wait for training camp and the season to get a little bit closer, and we will come back with a jam-packed season 2. But that does it for us for now. Fitting note to end it on. We know what to look forward to. We know when the games are and what to plan for. I cannot wait to dive into everything in more detail as we get closer. So look for us in your feed. We will be back, I promise you. So make sure you're subscribed, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Go follow us on all the social networks at NFL on Fox Pod. So when we do come back, you will know about it. Cannot wait for season 2. Cannot wait for the 2024 season. Now that I see all these games, I wish it was next week, but I have a feeling it's going to pass in the blink of an eye. Cannot wait to keep talking NFL with all of y'all. We appreciate the support so much, and I will talk to y'all real soon.